Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Community Speaking Series. And today we are featuring Dr. Janice K. Neal-Vincent for Women's History Month. She is a Mississippian, and she currently lives in Madison, Mississippi. She is um, a poet, a playwright, spoken word choir director, performance artist. She does one woman shows. She's a retired professor who taught in her field, and she has influenced many people that now live around the country in her field. Welcome, Dr. Uh, Vincent.
Thank you. A pleasure to be with you today.
Yes. So I have your first interview question is because I know that you are known in our local community by many because of your spoken word choirs, your one woman performances, and all of the things that you do in our community. Can you tell the audience something about you that is not widely known in your local community?
Wow, that's a bomber of a question. But I suppose because there are so many people whose lives I have touched and who have touched my life here in Mississippi, I would have to say being shy and being an introvert. That's one thing that people don't really around here know about me. But I have had the opportunity all my life to witness so many situations like many of us, and I have tried to learn from those situations. I've been more or less like a fly on the wall, if that would be good terminology here in terms of talking about being an introvert. When I was coming up back in the day, I was very, very shy. And what I mean by that is I have 9 siblings, but out of the 9 siblings, the 10 children within my family background, my parents, I kind of stayed to myself a lot because I loved the art of reading. And I would get to myself as a child and read, get in the corner of my room. And what was in the book was what kept me company. So I found a way to dialogue with whatever the book might have been. I would talk it aloud, whatever it was. The content meant so much to me because when I was in the first grade, of course, my parents could not afford to send the children to kindergarten, pay for that. When I was in the first grade, I learned to read. I learned to read early on. And I took my little Spot and Jane book home to my mama. And I told her that I was going to sit on her lap and read my book. I did just that with no help from my mama. I read every word because there was a teacher named Mrs. Pearl Tate Harris who taught me phonics in her class, taught me how to say the word, pop, 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 but, and it would eventually come out. So I sat there and I read the entire Dick and Jane book that had Spot in it, some kind of way. I read the book. So that was encouragement for me because my mama never stopped me. Whatever I did with the book, she encouraged me. She told me, oh, that's wonderful, Jan, blah, blah, blah. Then there was a time when I did what my mama called chicken scratch. And she did not allow the children to write on the walls. We had to write on the paper, which was the right way for the parent to teach the child. So one day I went to her with my chicken scratch and I was calling out all of the things that were on the paper, telling her what they were. She never did say that any of that was not right. She encouraged me. Well, her brother, from California. And I learned many years after that what that conversation between him and my mama was at the time when I wrote on the paper. She said Uncle Marshall came to her and he said, Ruby Lee, why did you tell that girl that she was writing so well? You know that was nothing but chicken scratch. And I remember her telling me that she said to Uncle Marshall, she was not going to discourage me. She was telling him all the names that I had written down on the paper and what they were, and she wanted me to grow as a result of that. So all of those years went by. I did not even know anything about that conversation until I was a young woman, and my mother shared it with me. So I said to the children that we could be whatever we wanted to be. She and my father, who was a self-employed painter, and my mother, a worker inside the home, said, don't come back without the answer. So whatever that was that we had to get, we had to bring it back in a positive way. Well, that was the way of the 8th grader, my father, and the 12th grader, my mother, who taught the children the art of discipline to be able to be persistent with what we needed. In other words, don't come back without the answer. And so I remember that. And even now, if you got the answer, I've got to try to get it, because I know that there's some meaning in what you're going to say to me for my benefit. Don't come back without the answer. Constantly echoes in my mind.
Very good. And so my next question is, name 2 things you are most proud of, professionally.
2 things I'm most proud of are, 1, having touched the lives of many, and 2, having seen and now seeing many of those persons who have gone on in life to experience their dreams, to have been inspired by something that I might have said or might have taught them. And they remembered it. They remember it now when I'm in conversation with them. I might meet them somewhere, run into them. They will come to me and they say they remember so-and-so that took place when I was teaching them. They could tell me everything about whatever we did in the teaching phase of the learning process and tell me how I influenced them. Some would tell me about the families that they have and how they share things with their husbands, their wives, their children about something that Dr. Janice K. Neal-Vincent taught them. It sticks in their mind. So that to me is a blessing. It tells me that God had me anchored in some kind of way to touch them positively. So that's a wonderful thing for me to be able to hear males and females talk about things that they learned when they were with me. It's beautiful.
Yes. And so the next question is, if you had something to brag about, name two things that you would brag about.
If I had something to brag about, one of those things would be the impact that someone has put in my heart based upon his or her life. One of those things would be, for instance, this book that I'm holding in my hand. It was an honor for a former speech communication major of mine when I was teaching at Jackson State University to contact me many years, several decades from the time that I had taught her, to let me know that she had mentioned me in her first book. She mentioned that I was one of three most outstanding educators in the United States. It was such an honor. And then when she wrote the second book, she had me featured on the front cover of the book. She asked me if I could do that for her because of the things that she learned in the practice of effective speech communication. My. I could have gone through the floor if gravity had not helped. This book is called Human Relations. As you can see, I'm here on the cover. I was so excited about what the young lady, Kimberly Ross Brown, who now teaches at a community college in Lexington, Kentucky, said about me and what she wanted me to be featured on, that I went to the chair at that time, Dr. Bill J. Schooley, who has since died a few years ago. But I asked him if he wanted to take a photo with me. And I rounded up some of the students at Jackson State. These are some of the students you see. And they all agreed. It was such an honor. So we did things in terms of human relations. Then I rewarded Kimberly by teaching this book, along with another book that I was teaching in my curriculum to the same class one semester. We had an enjoyable time as we experienced human relations because the whole thing was about getting the students involved beyond classroom settings to work with other people. Oh my, that was and still is something that I can brag about. But back in the day, I quietly did the bragging. I even forgot about this after I had retired, and then I went to my shelf and I found it yesterday. So that's one of the things that I can brag about. Another thing I believe for me, if I had opportunity to brag, would be that there have been so many people who have taught me what I have now become. As I look back over the years, And I remember as a young woman striving, or shall I say a teenager, because I was a teenager at the time, striving to come into who I now have grown into. I remember James Brown singing, "Say It Loud, I'm Black and I'm Proud." And oh, that was a time when we could come out in our dashikis as youngsters and we could wear our afros. And my goodness, my hair, when I did my first afro, was just all, hey, wow, it had no kind of formality to it in terms of talking, say it loud, I'm Black and I'm proud. And one day my daddy said to me when I did my hair, "Jan, I don't want you going anywhere with me looking like that." I was shocked to hear my daddy say that to me because I never heard him say he didn't want me to be around him until that time. But he taught me that I needed to have some structure about myself, not just come out talking in a dashiki, I'm Black and I'm proud, and look any kind of way. So I learned how to neatly set my hair from listening to my daddy with my new hairstyle. Yes, I can brag about folks like my daddy. I can brag about folks like Maya Angelou. I can brag about folks like Langston Hughes. I can brag about Haki Madhubuti. His name, his American name, that is, was Don L. Lee. I first saw him when I was a teenager performing his poetry in his afro, in his dashiki on television. And I wondered who that Black young man was because I never heard anybody express poetry like that. And so I said, oh, now he's got something going on. I love poetry. I'm going to have to look at what he's doing so I'll know how to present myself if I ever have the opportunity to do so. And then, of course, there was Dr. Margaret Walker Alexander. I never shall forget what she told me when I performed one day in her honor with the Daughters of Margaret. I was a professional performing artist there with them for 15 years and the longest performing artist. But Dr. Margaret Walker Alexander said to me on that particular day when the daughters performed in her behalf that she had some colleagues, and she called their names at the university, who did not want her book, Jubilee, in the JSU bookstore, the Jackson State University bookstore there in Jackson, Mississippi. I said, Dr. Alexander, I repeated the names, and they were a husband-wife team. They were of the opposite race. And she said, yes, so-and-so and so-and-so. I couldn't believe it because these were two people I really did admire. And the man was one of my English professors at the university when I was a student. She said, yes, they said that my book was inferior and my book should not be in the JSU bookstore. I was truly shocked to hear. So that was a learning experience for me to understand that just because you are doing what you are doing does not say it's going to be well received by another. That was a real lesson and a wake-up call for me because I saw opposite sides then. I saw Dr. Alexander on one side of the fence with these people, and I saw myself on the other side. But I learned that you have to be aware of those with whom you communicate. Just because you're communicating something positively does not mean they are going to accept it. Or it could mean that there is envy there when you have been blessed to do something. what I learned as a result of all of that is that wherever we go, we need to understand that there may be opposition that we may encounter. Opposition, I learned during my course of life coming up and where I am now, is good for me because it lets me know that there is something there or someone not wanting me to do what I know I need to do. And I know I can do it because God has already ordained me to get it done. And so I must continue to keep my eyes on the prize to get that done. The opposition has told me I'm not going to be successful. So now I've got to demonstrate that I'm going to be successful so I can make a difference in another person's life.
Well, thank you. You said two things that I wanted to make a point on before I went to the next question. First of all, the idea that you taught from the book and added your former students' book in the curriculum was definitely a leg up that not enough Black authors receive on the academic college level or period in the high school level either. And that's something that we really need, people who will add the books into the curriculum. The second thing that you mentioned was Margaret Walker Alexander. And Monday, I went to the new beautiful hotel downtown Jackson, the Western, in the jury pool. And I passed by the picture of the musicians in the state of Mississippi. I was like, oh, I'm so excited. I took a picture of it. You know, including B.B. King, David Banner, a lot of people, you know. And then I went down and I saw Mississippi authors. And it's in the beautiful uh, uh, glass display. Eudora Welty, John Grisham, William Faulkner, and some others. And Margaret Walker Alexander and Richard Wright was not there. And I was really hurt by that because I felt that at least they should have been represented because they're our biggest, but they're not representative. And what happened to Margaret Walker? Her colleagues didn't want her book in the bookstore, and by that then she was famous, world known, and they didn't want her book in the bookstore. And that just goes to show you that what is happening in terms of underrepresentation of Black authors is not new, but it's something really needs to be done about that. And I'm not going to take a, but I just, when you said that, I was just stunned about not seeing her name, her or any of the Black authors represented at a new hotel in downtown Jackson that our county was paying for our jury to be at in terms of for social distancing. But anyway, I'm gonna move to the next question, which is okay. What is the greatest challenge you face as a Black author and poet?
Well, I think that is consistent with the point that you were making. I believe that the first thing that a person might see who is not open-minded is skin color. And for some reason, that seems to say to the person, less than, can't do, won't do. I won't invite that person. That person is like an object, like it is when we are on the elevator and people begin to look at the wall, not at each other, because we are strangers on the elevator. And so someone who has a negative vibe, a negative disposition, a negative attitude about color is turned off. And that person is deprived of the knowledge, actually, that he or she can get from the person who is turned off by that particular individual. I'm a person who likes to learn. I'm a person who believes that every individual has something to teach me. And whatever that something is, I want to get it. I'm also a person who knows for a fact that if I'm pushed against the wall, I will come out and I will demonstrate my knowledge, whether one wants to get it or not. I'm not going to come out in a negative way. I'm going to come out positively because I know with confidence that I can deliver the message. So whatever it is, it's going to come out. If there is a system that strives to, which was the case with Dr. Alexander, push me out or keep me out or determined that I cannot enter in, I will find a way to get there. And so life teaches us, if we would just listen, where we need to go, how we need to benefit from it, and what we're going to do when we get there. God teaches us along the way to learn from mistakes, whatever the mistakes are. What I did in situation A, for instance, I want to do better by the time I get to situation M, because life brings with it hard knocks along the way. But then life puts life in terms of people who will allow us to flow easily and smoothly, may not even know the hard knocks we have experienced. But based on those couple types of things, the easy roads and the hard roads, we begin, if we are wise, to have a focus to learn from there, and see where we ultimately are striving to go, so that eventually we will get there. Negativity to me says I don't want to be in that playground. There is something better than that negativity. But because the negativity is something I must travel through, then I'm going to make sure that I lean closer to those who are positively engaged in my life, so that I can pull something from them and adjust it within my life. So I make adaptability, and I'm striving consciously to know that there are people who are always watching me. I might not see them, but they see me. And because they see me, I have to carry myself in a certain way so that they will come to know the positive things about me. And then even within their own lives, perhaps they will grow. Perhaps they will, if they're on the negative end up in the positive stream of things. So that to me is one reason why God puts us among different ones, whoever we are. He never told us that everything was going to be comfort. He never told us everything was going to be joy. For those of us who believe in this God of the universe, we come to understand that there is going to always be something that we don't like that's going to be trailing us. But God wants us to grow from such an experience, not to be obsessed with it, but to grow from it and to do the opposite of what the negative is challenging us to do. And it's hard many times. But if we think about who we are and where we are striving to go, we can't let the negative interfere and keep us from getting what God has for us. It's so important to be human. It's so important to be compassionate. It's so important to have a willingness to learn from one another. That's whether that is a child, whether that is an adult, whether the person is a teen. We are here, I believe, to learn, one of the reasons, from one another. We are here to serve one another in a variety of ways because they make us who we are. It's not always getting something from somebody. It's what we can give in order to help someone else benefit. So we have to take these things with us throughout our lives. It's very important.
Okay, so the next question is the opposite. What are your greatest achievements as a Black author and poet?
I think my greatest achievements as a Black author and poet are being able to draw on others to get them to see the point that I'm making in the poem I write. Being able to instill something in them to encourage them to go where they need to go in light of their own experiences, based on the experiences of my life or my writings, my directing that I have shared with them. And when I can see them talk about those things, and I can see their lives demonstrating those things, they tell me, those people got the answer. They have it. It's not like my mama said one day when I was a young woman and had just started directing spoken word choirs, that cotton boy, he ain't got it. I knew when she said that, he needed some more help in the choir. And so I needed to spend more time with that boy to help him to understand that he really did have it. And so to help others bring it out, whatever it is very important to me, because it's more than saying the line of the poem. Because a poem should not mean, it should be just like Charlotte Lee, a professor emerita of Northwestern University, said many years ago. A poem should not mean, but be. And so when we figure out what the poem means, we can make it do what it needs to do. It's so important. And to see one go inside his or her soul and come out with that meaning lets me know, he or she got the message. Why? Because he or she delivers the message. We expect the Postal Service to deliver every day of the week, 5 days, 6 days. We expect that Postal Service to be in the mailbox. And so it's the same type of thing that goes on when I work with people. I'm expecting them to bring out the best. I'm expecting them, shy, stuttering, trembling, and all, to grow into the human being that he or she, that they are supposed to be. It takes time. It takes experience. It takes years of preparation. But when we are determined to bake that coconut cake, and I can bake a mean coconut cake, bake that coconut cake like it's supposed to come out, it's going to come out. And it's going to be edible and just fine.
Yes. And so my next question, I wanted to make this response first. Last year, February the 8th, 2020, before the pandemic shut the country down, you did a spoken word choir at the Jackson Book Festival center stage in the Jackson Medical Mall. It was my first time ever seeing a spoken word choir, and I was just blown away of how entertaining it is to see people speaking the poetry in different voice tones at the same time. It was just an amazing experience. And also, I wanted to tell the audience that Meredith, etc., which I'm the publisher of, had the opportunity to publish your spoken word choir book, the second edition, with new poems that had not been in the first edition. So my next question is, you've been doing spoken word choirs for decades. How many directors have you trained to direct spoken word choirs over the years?
Well, that's a difficult question because so many have moved on with their lives and they're doing what they need to do and should have done from way back when. But ever so often, I hear of by their contacts with me or run into them that they have a spoken word choir. One lady told me from the church that I grew up in, and I was really shocked to hear her say that she had founded a spoken word choir. I said, you have a spoken word? Yes, I have a spoken word choir. And that had been many years since I worked with her and the others during that time period that I'm talking about. But to hear her say decades later to me, and it was such an honor, her face just lit up when she saw me. I have a spoken word choir, said to me that it taught so many things, just the idea of spoken word choir. And then to find out 3 or 4 weeks ago, a young lady contacted me, texted me and said, this is your friend. I had no idea what the number was or who the person was, and I need your help because I'm working with the spoken word choir that I founded for February, and I need you to talk to me about it. And I texted back and I said, well, who are you? So she identified herself. She had been a student from way back when at one of the universities. And she told me that she was looking for poetry and she wanted to know if I could help her out for Black poetry. I said, oh, I have just what you need. I have a spoken word choir book. I said, it's called A Little of Me, A Little of You. I said, you ought to be able to find something in that particular book. So she met me several days thereafter, in my home, we were outside, of course, practicing social distancing. And so I held the book up, gave it to her, and we hugged like that, you know, without hugging. She was, and then I was honored and found out about a week or so later, it may have been 2 weeks thereafter, that she was doing one of my poems, directing one of my poems, There Is No Valentine Like God. She was doing that. And she had different couples talking the lines and the verses in the poem. It was so pretty, so pretty. Then I saw my name across the screen because she was inviting me to attend the virtual service, worship service. I could not believe it. I just could not. It was just overwhelming to see that type of creativity come through. I was just really excited. So there are different ones who come along and they have an idea that they want to share with different audiences. There's a woman, I can't remember the name now, it escapes me, but she is forming a choir at her church and she bought the book. She has told me different things that she's doing and it's just honored. It's an honor to get this type of feedback. And then to hear a man talk and get excited about the book. And remember that he was doing the Absalom poem when I was writing it and directing a choir. And he's gone out there on Facebook and thanked me for the Absalom poem. And is talking about how he recalled the days when he was learning it in the spoken word choir. All of those things are an honor to me. So I believe that there will be many more directors as now the book is in place and they have something that they can go to. They have an archway to carry them to what they need to do. And they see within this book that there is also a primer that tells a potential director how to do a spoken word choir, how to organize it, how to get the voices together. What are the pieces like in terms of the different personalities who make up the choir? What is the leader supposed to be like? What is the chorus supposed to be like? All of those things are in A Little of Me, A Little of You, spoken word choir book. So the directors are springing forth, not only from way back, but where we are now. And I'm so happy that God has allowed me to be still during the pandemic to show me wonders that he continuously does with this spoken word choir. I've even been able to Zoom some projects, and that's been a wonderful thing. A wonderful thing to be able to communicate, not only in a community, but to communicate abroad with different folks. It means something. And when they are asking about different things, I can see them virtually. They can see me, and we can talk spoken word choir. We can talk about their desires to write a book, their desires to write a poem, and to have others to do that poem. So much learning, and I'm very excited.
Well, very good. And I want to just say that I thank you for everything that you do and have done. And it is an honor to interview you and to feature you through the Community Library Speaking Series for Women's History Month. And also, I would like to tell the audience, encourage the audience to buy the book, in particular, teachers. And I hope that your former job, whoever is teaching the former classes that you taught, is will, if they haven't, use your spoken word choir book there at Jackson State. And I want to ask you two questions. How many high schools has your book been in, the first edition or this edition, and colleges, and also to for you to tell us about the library opportunity where your book will be, where a head librarian is trying to get you in our library system.
At this time, there are several high schools and colleges based upon the persons I know and I have communicated with about the book who are looking at the book and are excited about possibilities of sharing it in classroom settings as well as beyond in terms of wherever there is a need to share that poem. You must understand here that this is not a book just to be in a classroom, but it's an excellent book for a classroom setting because of the fact that the students are already present. The students can come together along with the director to do what they need to do together to make the poem come out successfully. Libraries are being shared the book. As a matter of fact, Medgar Evers Library has already purchased the book from Amazon based upon communication that I struck up with the director of the library. And so from that conversation, we have moved now to my getting ready to do a recording at the library, a video recording that is, for it to be circulated throughout the library system. And the book is being cataloged on the shelves for different potential readers. I also understand from the director of the library that many things in her judgment can be done with a little of me, a little of you. So I'm open for the workshops. I'm open for consultation. I'm open for seminars because there is so much learning to take place when people participate in a spoken word choir, that is. There is character development. There is eye contact. There is vocal delivery. There is bodily behavior. There is one-to-one contact. There is togetherness, unification, all kinds of things that happen as a result of the spoken word choir. Learning about many, many authors, persons people would perhaps never have thought about, but because of the poem drawing on the author, and the author moving about in terms of whatever the expressions may be, it allows for the personalities to come together to understand so many poems. And I must say that light prose, like Dr. King's I Have a Dream speech, can be done in the form of a spoken word choir. So there are so many ideas that come up. Then when we add the choir director's creativity, as the choir director learns certain pieces and is able to direct those pieces to the choir members, look at all of the things, the new things that can be created. There are productions that occur as a means of spoken word choirs. Not that a choir is just standing there doing one poem. a choir, a spoken word choir, can do a production, an entire production. So many things that can take place. So the libraries are very good in terms of message transmission, because when the book is shelved on the shelves, then that's going to bring about more meaning, because it's going to say that you can contact Dr. Janice K. Neal-Vincent. The contact information is within the book. You can also go through Amazon to purchase the book, or any of the agents online with book publishing and purchasing. You can go to Meredith, etc., who is her publisher of that second book, A Little of Me, A Little of You. You can go inside the book and find how to contact Dr. Janice K. Neal-Vincent. So there are all kinds of ways to get the book, and then to be able to do something with the book in a positive light. There are lots of people who are mentioned even in the book. There is the former president, President Barack Obama. There is the former First Lady, Mrs. Michelle Obama. There's a poem in there about her. There is Medgar Wiley Evers, who was the slain civil rights leader, state field secretary of Mississippi. There are so many folks who are mentioned in this poem, and I believe that the reader or the listener would be startled to find out that he or she is within the book in many ways, in terms of the different things that are happening within the poetry. It's a great book to have, not because I wrote it, but because I had opportunity for 12 years to direct students, to direct community persons with spoken word choirs. And I discovered that one day as a grant writer and recipient of the grants from Greater Jackson Arts Council, that I had a book. So God sat me down one day and he showed me among my stacks at home all the poems that I had written. And he told me what he wanted me to do. So I took those poems and I shared them with the Greater Jackson Arts Council. They were shocked to know that they had sponsored me with so many poems, because they allowed me to go into the schools and the churches and the campgrounds to share my original works. But they had no idea that my poems had festered into a book. So the very first book was the one that Greater Jackson Arts Council published for me. And they honored me and some students from Power APAC, a performance school, one day, their 35th anniversary. The students dressed up like young men and women. They had their own little restaurant in a room at a hotel, and they ushered them out, performance time. The students did the anti-bullying poems in the book. And they were only in middle school, but they did such a wonderful job. So there are all kinds of accolades that have come over the years for me, with a little of me, a little of you. There was a principal one time, early on, before I even thought about any kind of book, when I first started writing the poetry for directing the choirs in the school system, who said to me, I'm going to do the I Have a Dream. I'm going to do the In Martin Was a Dream poem, the poem I had written, at the family night. And not only am I going to do that poem, I'm going to have you to come and direct all of the school on family night. And this is how we are going to do it. So she had the different teachers at the school at the time to take 2 poems each, teach those poems to the children in their classes. And we all came together on family night. 650 children at the school shared those poems. And she, the principal, Dr. Hattie McMillan, I shall never forget her, shared that piece I wrote about Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Giselle Gentry, well known, the Gentrys in Jackson, principals and teachers. Giselle Gentry was the pianist for that particular night. And everything just flowed so beautiful. So that's just an example of what a spoken word choir person can do. That's just one example. All kinds, like I said earlier, of creativity can occur as a result of a person learning the art of spoken word choir. Just like a musical choir can sing the song, a song is nothing but a poem, then the spoken word choir can speak the poem together, and the meaning comes out so clearly.
Yes, and last year when you all were doing the spoken word choir, I got to learn the side that you're talking about. It's similar to a team sport. My childhood friend Gwendolyn Mayberry was in it, and Leslie Hayes, and they were telling me how they were doing the reciting at the practices. So when you do a spoken word choir, there's a level of perfection that the director has to bring everybody to through the practice. So you have to go to the practice, you have to learn your lines like an actor does, and you have to adjust your voice tone. And that's why after I learned that, I thought, wow, how amazing that would be if all of the music teachers in the city used it for JPS students. That kind of discipline would really be very positive for our students that are not in APEC, because APEC is just a small percent of the kids that are in the arts. But if this kind of performance was added to what the other teachers are already doing, it would just really be a positive for the general population of JPS. And on that note, I think that I would like to encourage music teachers in the city, JPS, middle school, as well as a high school, to use this poem to add to what they're already doing in music class. And then the last thing I want to ask you is, what's next? What's your next event? And I think you did mention, I know if people want to buy the hardback book, it's on line through Barnes and Noble. I know. I'm not sure where else it is online. Of course, they can come to Meredith, etc. .com.
Amazon.com, Amazon.com. Mm-hmm. And
Yeah.
like I said, in this book will indicate how I can be contacted. I can be contacted via my email. I can be contacted Cash App. I can be contacted other ways, cell phone and what have you, word of mouth. But you can go to Amazon.com and purchase this book. It's very important that you get the book. There was opportunity, and I did take advantage of it some years ago. Principal had me to come one summer. He allowed me a classroom after school to work with a set of children at that particular middle school. And not only did they learn spoken word choir, but they were also directed by me to look at different objects that I would place on the desk and to write their own poems. We were featured at the school at the end of the year to share with the school system what those students had learned as they sat with me for 1 month. And they did extremely well. So there are so many positive things that can come as a result. And remember, Meredith, etc., can also send out the book. Meredith, etc., can send out the book. So there are a variety of ways by which one can purchase A Little of Me, A Little of You spoken word choir book. It comes in the hardback and it also comes in a softback. The softback is $9.24. And this hard copy, I think, is $16.74. But either way, it's a great investment, even for grandparents who might want to purchase the book for their grandchildren, even for other relatives within the family, for one sibling to purchase for another sibling. There are all kinds of poems here. There's even a poem in here about Aretha Franklin, Queen of Soul. And when you read that, you're going to really fall out because it's a love type of thing where the police come along and run the folks away, and then the police gets involved and disturbs the neighborhood. So it's a whole lot that can be done within this spoken. There's a whole lot, rather, that can be done. A little of me, a little of you. And of course, you'll find a photo of me on the back of the book. And there are different folks who are writing comments about A Little of Me, A Little of You, who have read the book. And they are sharing their comments so that people will come to know that there is so much here for character development, and for a person to be able to have positive self-esteem, a person to be able to open up dynamically, voice and body, to share that poem, to be that poem even. It means a lot. You will find 5 different themes within the poem. Themes like culture, hope, God calls, anti-bullying, and so forth are all within A Little of Me, A Little of You. Determination, the other one that I left out among the 5.
Yes, and one more. You introduced Osceola McCarthy, a poem.
Yes.
You introduced her to we did a online reading fair in July for 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks or something, for Learning Tree Book Club, and you introduced her to especially to the younger book club members, and then you read pieces of her life each day. And one thing that I really admired about your presence there is the particular interest that you gave to all of the children who read after they read, in terms of encouraging them and asking them questions and making them think, because your teaching skills are very important in a reading club and with book club readers. So I wanted to say, before I ask you to give us your final thoughts, that if you're just tuning in, I'm hosting the Community Library Speaker Series. We're featuring, for Women's History Month, Dr. Janice K. Neal-Vincent, a retired professor at Jackson State, and a spoken word choir director, and she is the cream of the crop in her craft. And I hope that there will be many more people to learn from her art and talent, and you can use her book, A Little of Me, A Little of You, spoken word choir book. It even tells you in the beginning what a spoken word choir is and how you do your voice tone and everything. So again, you can get the hardback book is online in Barnes and Noble Marketplace, and the softback book is anywhere you can buy books online, and of course you can get it from the publisher, um, Meredith, etc. I'm the publisher of Meredith, etc. And Miss, I'm sorry, Dr. Janice Neal-Vincent, please give us thank you for allowing me to interview you and for us to feature you for Women's History Month. Keep up the good work, and please give us your closing thoughts.
I thank you so much for allowing me opportunity to come and talk with you. It's just been a wonderful thing. My goodness, we talked a long time. So I am so grateful to have even had the honor to be asked to come to share. It means a lot to me. And this is what community is all about. It's about uplifting the other and diminishing the self in the process for the good of. So that's what I see that has taken place during our session today. I'm so thankful for the viewing audience, and I do hope that I have encouraged you to go out and purchase A Little of Me, A Little of You spoken word choir book. You can find me in different settings online. You can find me in different settings in the virtual Zooms and what have you. You can find me at the NAACP in Kentucky sharing a performance, a production called Grandma Sings in honor of the African American grandmothers. I performed with three ladies. Well, there were three ladies, three of us who performed these Grandma Sayings by Dana Rice. I mean, there's just so much that is out there on me, and even I have started learning some things that are there that I had forgotten about or did not even know existed there. So we don't know who is watching, but we know that there is somebody watching. And at some point, some of these things are going to come back home. So I'm hoping that I have said something here today to challenge us to be the best that we can be in character, and to encourage others along the way to come with us so that we can continue to build the world that God put us in. We can continue to, in other words, do the pats on the back and encourage others to move forward in their lives as we strive to do the right thing. And thank you once again. Love you all.
Thank you and have a wonderful day. Dr. Janice K. Neal-Vincent, author, poet, spoken word choir director. The name of her book, A Little of Me, A Little of You, spoken word choir book. Thank you. Have a wonderful day. Thank you, Dr. Vincent.
Thank
Have
you.
a good day. All right. See you later.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.